All right. I have heard many stories of people paying off their debts, right? The question I have for you is it realistic for a person to pay off debt who is on a fixed income in an economy impacted by inflation?
Is it reasonable to pay
Is
off
it
debt?
realistic?
Realistic. I think it depends on how much income you're talking about and how much debt you're talking about. Um, Debt is an interesting thing in that debt is not always bad. Debt is not always good. Debt is leverage. Debt is economic power. And so you can think about debt like an athlete taking on weight. Is it better or worse for an athlete to gain weight? Right. It depends on the sport. It depends on the position they play. It depends on what their deficiency is. It depends on whether the debt is fat or if it's muscle. Right. If you put on 20 pounds of muscle, that might make you a better basketball or football player. But put on 20 pounds of fat, not so much. Right. But maybe you don't even play a position that requires a lot of weight anyway. Right. You're a swimmer or something. Right. So my point is to say that a person's individual relationship with debt is heavily dependent on their circumstances, their situation, their opportunity set, their risk tolerance. All kinds of factors come into play with that. Now, for regular Americans, debt typically on average in this country is not a good thing. Credit card debt's past $1 trillion. Auto loan debt is explosively painful in terms of the amount of wealth that gets lost. The average new car note is about $750 or something like that.
It's crazy.
That's insane, right? Because I show my students in Black Business School that if you were to invest that money in some sort of S&P 500 index fund and do that over just a 10-year period, you have well over $100,000. In 20 years, you're talking about $500,000. And think about this, right? These are poor people or people that are struggling, right? That are somehow able to generate that generational wealth for the car dealer. They generate generational wealth for the landlord. They generate generational wealth for the people selling consumer items. But then when I come and say, well, you can generate generational wealth for yourself too, they're like, no, I can't because I'm Black, right? Self-esteem, right? It's also expectations for yourself, right? So what I would say in general is debt should be used if it's under one main condition. Does that debt make you more money? If the debt makes you more money, then great. Right, that puts you in the category of all the great companies that have taken on debt that's allowed them to accelerate their income stream. For most Americans, things like credit card debt, even student loan debt, has become very, very toxic and very problematic.
Yeah, I just want to go back though, right? Because you kind of intertwine business with the personal. I want to focus on personal, right? A personal person on fixed income. Do you think, is there any strategy you would recommend for them? Because I personally don't see how you can do it without increasing your earning or increasing your skill to increase your earning. Because there's but so much you can take off.
Right.
So do you believe a person on fixed income can get out of debt if they're in debt? Because where is the extra money coming from to pay off the debt?
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? There are creative ways to live that can reduce your expenses or increase your income. And what you said was perfect in the sense that a lot of people forget that another way to deal with debt is to increase your income, so you have more money to pay off the debt. First, a few rules of debt I would apply. Number one, pay off that high interest debt first. That's important. Number two, if you can do some belt tightening, go for it. If you can't, then your only option at that point is to increase your income, or to consider other lifestyle hacks. Like a lot of people, they want to crap all over the idea of things like marriage and family. Well, marriage is a wonderful wealth hack. My wife makes six figures. That's pretty cool. I go to a restaurant. I don't have to worry about paying the bill if I don't feel like it. She wants to get stuff. She wanted to get the floors done in the house. I was like, I don't want to get the floors done now. She's like, okay, I'll pay for it. I said, okay. Now I got nice floors and I didn't have to pay for it. People forget about that type of stuff. And I would encourage them to just reconsider those things. But even if you didn't want to do something like marriage, just even the idea of cohabitating with other people or another family or roommates, I think that's going to be required for anybody under the age of 35.
Fire, listen, that'll be the norm in a couple years.
Yeah.
All the single is not going to be a reality for every person to have their own place moving forward. It's just not a reality.
Yep.
So that will be the norm moving forward.
Yeah, well, there's no rule saying that one apartment must be occupied by one person. We just made that rule. But if you look at people that come from other countries, you look, when Mexican families come over here, they'll pack in as many as they can into that space to save that money and to survive. And then once they finish surviving, they start thriving because now they've got excess cash flow that can then be invested in developing their businesses and things like that, right? So I would encourage anybody that's trying to figure out how do you survive in this economy, just understand that you're. I'm gonna be a mathematician here and explain something that's real simple. Everybody can get this. You're trying to solve a really hard problem with too many constraints. And in mathematics, they teach us that the more constraints you have on your solution, the less optimal your solution is going to be, the worse your solution is going to be. Your constraints are that you're trying to do it the way they taught you in school. You're trying to do it the way everybody else is doing it. You're trying to do it the way your mama and your daddy taught you. No, you need to get rid of those constraints. Your parents didn't understand everything about money. They lived in a different era. Your friends are stupid. Most people don't understand anything about economics. Let's just be real. And then also society and all these other norms. Or whatever. There's nothing saying you have to follow those rules. I believe everybody should create their own rules as they go along, but don't be stupid. Sort of learn and think about these things. So, for example, I'm 25 years old. I'm trying to figure out how to buy a house. You know what? First thing I might do is I'm going to get me a place with a couple of roommates and cut that cost as much as possible, or maybe even live with my parents if I'm able to do that. And then what I do is I make a specific plan to take that excess cash flow, stack that money, invest it in safe assets, safe stocks or whatever, let that money grow, get that first down payment so I can buy that property, so I can make that leap into wealth. And then also there's no reason that you can't buy a home with other people. It doesn't have to be your spouse, it can be your friend. But you got to make sure you trust those people. But at the same time, there's ways to do things. If you're doing, here's the thing, one thing about wealth, this is what this reminds me of. Wealth is a team sport. Like, people don't understand that. But wealth is a team sport. And where African Americans struggle is that we're trying to play a team sport as individuals. I don't care how good a football player is. A football player can never defeat a football team. Even a mediocre football team will destroy a one football player. So my question for everybody is, who are your teammates? And if you don't have any, why aren't you spending the energy to figure out who those teammates might be? Right? And my wife is one of my teammates. My team, the people I work with, those are my teammates. Other people in my family, those are my teammates. It's much easier to get things done as a team than it is to get it done as an individual.
Can you speak about the negative psychological impact of working in corporate America as an African American?
Okay, so the corporate plantation is probably one of the reasons why Black people die earlier than everybody else, especially Black men. You're not supposed to, on a daily basis, constantly, consistently go into an environment where there is that much hostility and negative energy. That will affect your soul. It affects your body, physically, mentally, spiritually, everything else. And we don't think about that enough because we are so accustomed to it. But again, because my wife is a therapist and she tells me things, one thing that I concluded is that the relationship between Black people in corporate America is like a really bad relationship, a really bad marriage. Like, you need each other and you stay together, but it's incredibly toxic. And one thing about bad relationships is that the studies actually show that if you're in a relationship where your partner has contempt for you over a long period of time, that will kill you. People die earlier when their partner just has contempt for them. So you're going into this environment where you're not comfortable, you're not happy, they're not happy with you, they're complaining about you, but then you consider yourself lucky because at least you got a job. A lot of us don't even get the job or can't, we get fired on our day off, but you're there, and your partner, you're in this economic relationship with this company, and this heavy codependence, and they have this constant contempt for you. Well, that's not good for you. One time there was a guy that I talked to who was a banker. Now, he's one of those educated Negroes, right? I used to believe the myth that if a Black man gets education, all that life gets so much better. I had a whole PhD, and I still saw the same thing that I would have seen. I saw when I worked at Taco Bell. And so this brother who's a banker, he tells me, he says, Dr. Boyce, he talks about how hard it was at his job. He said, man, they would treat me so bad, and I was so stressed out. And I'd heard that a lot, from lots of people. And he said, so eventually I got fired. And he said, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. He said, now I'm okay. And I said, you are? I said, so really, tell me about that. So he said, well, let me show you. And he went upstairs, and he came down with this big old bucket of pills. He had to take about 8 different types of pills. just to maintain his mental health. And I said, wow. And I remember when I saw that big bucket of pills, I said, I don't want to ever be in this situation, because the stress from his job had harmed him psychologically to the point where he said, I was literally emasculated. He said, my testosterone had dropped to the level of almost like a woman. He said, I couldn't get it up for my wife. I was sleeping all day. And I said, wow, so they really emasculated him. Like, and this is what happens all throughout this country. So the rule I have for all black people, this is very basic. Every black child in America needs to learn how to start a business by the age of 12, as an emergency strategy in case they get sick of the corporate plantation and they want to have options. This is not just important for your own mental and physical health, but it's also important for your family. If that job doesn't want you anymore, and then you suddenly believe you're worthless and you're not productive for the family anymore, well, now your children suffer. So I say to people, look, if you don't want to do it for yourself, at least do it for your damn kids. Because you can't tell your 5-year-old son, well, son, we can't eat today because the white man ain't hiring. How's he going to look up to you and admire you if you're talking like that? How's your woman going to respect you as a black man when you're talking about, well, the reason I can't feed you is because that man won't take care of me? Well, she don't want to be with you. She going to want to be with him. She going to want to go to the source. She'll cut out the middleman. So I just think that black people, period, but really black men, I don't think any black man with any level of intelligence should be spending his whole life just working for other people. I don't think that. I think that as black men, it is absolutely essential that we learn how to build things and create things of our own, because I don't think we're welcome in those other institutions.
It's a tricky situation, right? I hear what you're saying, but it's unrealistic due to the climate that we're in, right? Now, we do encourage more brothers to go out and do their thing, and that's what we hope for. But the average person can't even function on a regular job, better yet, be independent and do that. It's just the reality of it. No disrespect to people, right? I think we need to have more institutions and more support systems to train and teach people, to encourage them, to give them the courage and confidence that they need. One of the things also that with this corporate structure, I find is that I think a lot of the frustrations people have because they don't understand nepotism. And they don't understand it's not their system. So, for instance, I think when you going understanding the system, you can minimize the stress despite it being in a wrong, effed up situation, right? And that's what I mean by that. You hear the complaint in regards to a person didn't get a promotion or this and that, but bro, it's not your company. And people take care of their own,
right? As
a natural human being.
That's true.
So I think if you're going with that mind frame, one, you can limit the amount of energy you're putting in that job. And kind of, I always tell people to split their energy. Sometimes they're giving too much ideas and too much energy to other people. So I always tell people you should have energy when you leave your job. You shouldn't be exhausted. With that excess energy, you can create something outside of that job. And you have to have a realistic expectation for your job. This man is not going to put you next to him as some CEO or CFO. Unless you're some crazy talent. If you're that talented, you need to be doing it on your own. So I think that expectation can minimize the stress and psychological torment people think.
I think you're 100% correct, right? And actually, it sounded like we disagree, but actually we agree 100%, right? Yeah, I don't think that every person needs to necessarily be an entrepreneur, but I think everybody should own something that is theirs. Other than a job. You don't own that job. That's not your job. When you die, they're not going to pass that job to your children. You'll die at your desk and they'll replace you within a week. So while everybody can't run a business, everybody should own a piece of some sort of business that just belongs to them. So that could be a side hustle that you have that adds 20% a month to your income that you do with your family. That could be just owning shares of stock. People don't understand, when you buy stock, you own pieces of those businesses. If I want to be in business with McDonald's, I can go buy McDonald's stock right there on my phone app. And just implementing that into your culture, I think is important. Now, your other piece there about having realistic expectations, I think it's important. That's very important, because that, in my view, connects to the illusion of racial equality. This false idea that we're fed as children, that's a complete myth, complete lie, complete fairy tale, that somehow your black ass can walk into a company with the same credentials as the white guy and get treated just like you were white. And then you come in there and you expect that. You think, okay, I got the same degree. We both went to Duke University. We both have MBAs. So my career path is going to be just like his. No, it's not, because human beings inherently support people that are similar to themselves, right? Like, so for example, you're not going to come into a business that I run as somebody that I can't relate to, who's not in my family, who's not in my culture, and really think that you're really just going to blend in and get the same opportunities I might give my kids. That is an absolute fantasy, right? So ultimately, I think that those realistic expectations and understanding that, sure, you can connect it to racism, but not in the way that you think. Some people say, "Oh, they're racist because they did this to me, that to me." No, there's racism still there. It's just not, but that's not it. What you're seeing there is nepotism or favoritism or just the fact that we like similar people. The racism comes into play in the sense that this society is so structurally imbalanced that white people have been given all the capital, all the resources to run all the businesses. So their cultural norms, values, and preferences take precedence over ours. So I come in as a black man who's just as intelligent as a white guy. My ideas are just as good. I would put my brain up next to Elon Musk any day of the week. But Elon Musk can go raise $20-30 billion to go buy companies. It would be harder for me to do that as a black man. And that's where racism steps in. And this is the structural higher level racism that I want people to focus on, not just getting caught up in, oh, he didn't like me because I'm black. Who cares if he likes you? Don't nobody like you. You need to like yourself. Your mama likes you. God likes you. And hopefully, if you're lucky, you got family and culture around you that likes you. That's all you're going to get.
When you spoke about adding a side hustle, another form of income, that's very important too in regards to protecting yourself from inflation. This is another complaint I hear from people. They complain about this raise, bro, right? They always complain about this raise. And it's like, all right, you've been there for a while. They haven't given you a raise. Even if they do give you raises, BS. Why don't you take control in regards to hedge yourself for inflation and just have something else coming in? It doesn't have to be a brick and mortar. Everybody think this side hustle has to be this great big production. And there are a lot of ways to bring in an extra 100 or 1,000 in just by using your brain and putting in some time.
Yeah. Well, the reason I think a lot of people don't hedge against inflation is because where are they going to learn it? We don't teach that in the public schools. They barely teach reading, writing, math in public schools. Somehow they teach everybody about how to be transgender and stuff, which is weird to me. But they somehow forget to teach them reading, writing, math, critical thinking skills, all these things that you need to survive. This is why I believe we believe this in the Black Business School, that Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black-owned businesses. I believe we do those three things, we will succeed. Now, to your point, to your question, hedging against inflation is very basic. Here's the deal. America is a capitalist society. Money drives everything. So if I'm in a capitalist society and I'm trying to survive, then I want to see how connected my fate can be to the wealthiest people in this country. America will never not take care of rich people. They always will. Well, who are the rich people? What are the people like the Elon Musks, et cetera, who run these corporations, the Apples and the Microsofts and all that? So one strategy I might apply to hedge against inflation is to buy stock in these companies and buy whatever I can, little pieces of that. It takes time, right? This is not a fast money strategy. This is a slow money strategy. Well, maybe the same amount of money I put into my car note, I also try to put that same amount into buying stocks, right? We literally do this in the Black Business School with what we call the $5 a day plan, right? Again, it takes maybe a decade before you really start seeing the results. So by doing that, here's what happens. So inflation kicks in. We know Microsoft's going to be good no matter what. Inflationary, deflationary, they're going to be good. But so since they're doing good, I'm doing good. Apple is going to do good. Since they're doing good, I'm doing good, right? That gives me my hedge that I need. And then maybe if I'm really working with my family and we're really being strategic about it, we go buy some real estate. Well, when inflation hits, property prices go up, right? So you're making all these economic gains. See, people act like inflation's bad for everybody. No, inflation's not bad for everybody. Inflation's great for investors. It's great for real estate owners. It's bad for workers because America screws working class people. And I hate it. It's terrible, but it's reality, right? So you have inflation going up here, cost of living shooting up like this. Wages are like this. How are you going to survive? How does that gap get filled? Oh, credit card debt has now reached $1 trillion. Well, why? When you talked earlier about self-esteem and all that stuff, well, we're maxing out the credit card to maintain the lifestyle to which we believe we should be accustomed, and that's what's happening in the economy right now. So if people are smart, you get out of that rat race as soon as you can, because it's not one that's designed for you to be the winner.
And I'm thankful that you're here in this conversation because too much time is spent complaining about the system and not understanding the system.
Yeah.
Because some black people go too far with this, like they're gonna burn down the country or something. I don't understand. Like we're here and our children are here, so we gotta make the thing work. Yeah, there are injustices we want to improve, but at the same time, we can't sit here and suffer.
Yeah, I don't really know how burning down the country would necessarily benefit um, the country, right? It's a, I do agree with you. I think that we're trained to complain. We're trained to whine because we were given. Going back to your self-esteem issue, I mean, you started with self-esteem. I think that that's so important in all this conversation. You started off as a child being trained that you're powerless and that your existence is pretty much worthless unless someone either gives you some power or they acknowledge you and validate you, right? So as a powerless person, then I see a problem. I don't think, how do I fix that problem? I'm thinking I need to whine and scream about that problem, and then somehow that's going to make the problem go away. Again, I taught math, to college students, and never once have I ever solved a problem by whining about it. That just does not work. And so I want people to pay attention to the difference between, say, the average African American mindset. Not that all of our people are bad. A lot of our people get it. A lot of people, like in the B1 culture, and all, they're getting it. They understand this. But then there are some of us.
Hold on, what's the B1 culture? I heard you say that.
Oh,
before.
B1 is black first.
Oh, black first.
Black first just means we take care of ourselves before we take care of anybody else. We build strong families. We love our women. We raise our children properly. We educate them financially. We're empowered. We can do this. Like I believe children of the B1 families are going to actually lead this community, lead this world in the future. Because we're playing the power game. We're playing chess, not checkers. That's what the All Black National Convention is all about. All that stuff. So going back to that though, if you look at sort of the average African American that sees a problem and says, "Let me complain about it." Or let's say you're in a neighborhood and there is no grocery store. You say, well, there's no grocery store here. This is terrible. But compare that to, say, a brother in the Nation of Islam. The people in the Nation of Islam don't sit around and say, there's no grocery store in our community. They get together and they have a meeting and say, how do we build a grocery store? Right? And but that takes a certain amount of equity in your own existence and understanding and self-esteem and self-awareness to really sort of take that approach. Right? And so why would we sit and complain about a problem instead of actually solving it? Well, because to some extent, white supremacy is a two-way street. We see ourselves in some cases as perpetual children. And shout out to Umar Johnson. Umar said this too, and I appreciate the fact he said this. We see ourselves as children, and we're looking for white people to come and do the big things that need to get done. Like when we need more jobs, we say, hey, daddy, can you create more jobs? Or Joe Biden or whatever, Democratic Party, whatever it is, right? If we need a safer neighborhood, we're looking to them to help make the neighborhood safer, right? Whereas if you look at certain men that come from, there's a friend of mine named Christopher Emden, who I believe he is, his family's from Jamaica. And Christopher is a professor at Columbia University, one of my buddies, smartest guy, one of the smartest guys I know. Christopher Emden went to his old neighborhood in the Bronx, and there was a crime problem. And Christopher, this professor, gets together with other men in the neighborhood, and they made that neighborhood safe. They didn't say, well, I hope somebody does something. They said, no, we're men. We're supposed to do this, right? So to some extent in America, that side of masculinity, that which connects to being accountability and being responsible for something, controlling a territory, that gets zapped out of us. And so, in fact, we even have this false idea that rappers are masculine. But if you look at rappers ain't nothing but yappers. Most of them, not all of them. I don't hate them all. I like a lot of them I love. But if you think about it, you have billionaire rappers who don't create, who can't go out and create thousands of jobs, like say an Elon Musk could or whatever. But they'll rap all day about how much money they have. Well, if you're this wealthy rapper, you're Jay-Z and you're worth a couple $1 billion, I should be able to go to the Marcy Projects and find 10,000 people that now have better economic opportunities because you exist. But I can't find that. Well, why? Well, because a lot of rappers are just yappers. Not all of them now. I want to make that clear because I don't hate all the rappers. But this sort of equity and understanding that you actually are not just a product of your environment, but your environment's supposed to be a product of you. That's the essence of manhood.
I just want to say I'm a rap supporter, like modern rap supporter. I just want to say in their defense, a lot of times we criticizing, and it's kind of wrong in the sense that they don't have that consciousness. They're not thinking about that, and they don't identify with the collective where black people like that fire. It's like they got their money and they doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So it's like we criticize them, but it's kind of unfair because they're literally not thinking about that.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, the word man should be also connected to the word manifest. My perception of manhood, because I was raised by a man, a lot of our men are not raised by men, was that my father would say, if you don't like your situation, you fix it. If you don't like the way something's getting done, you deal with it, you handle it, right? I don't know if I think a lot of our men either never were given or lost their ability to truly manifest, to understand that our community is our responsibility. When my father adopted me when I was 3, my biological father was on drugs. My stepfather, who actually fought over a drug addiction, but he adopted me. I remember hearing his language. His language was, he said, I looked at you and your mother and I said, those two are mine. That's my responsibility, right? How often do you hear men really talk like that? You don't hear that. You don't hear that as defined as a core value in masculinity. A lot of people think masculinity is thumping your chest, growing a beard, smoking cigars, you know what I mean? And talking big on the internet. But no, a man can manifest his reality. And you see it, you can actually see it sometimes in sports. Like, think about it, right? If I am the Dallas Cowboys and I'm playing against the Philadelphia Eagles and I as an Eagles player, I believe that I'm better than the Dallas Cowboys, then I know I have to go prove that. I have to manifest that reality. I can't just talk about it. I have to actually be about it. I can't just say I am this thing. I must show that I am this thing. So I think that show and prove aspect of masculinity, I wish we would embrace that a little bit more, and I wish we would teach that to our sons, because I remember having some very frustrating conversations with certain individuals. There's two. This gives you the disparity in terms of rappers, so I want to make sure I'm fair on this. I remember having extensive conversations with Ice Cube when he was doing his thing with the politics. And what I liked about Ice Cube is that I think he understands the manifest in the word man, meaning that when we talked about supporting Dr. Claude Anderson and Powernomics and all that, I said, hey, man, I'll put up 20,000. You put up 20,000. Let's buy 1,000 of these books, give them out to the community so we understand what Powernomics looks like as a community. He said, okay. So we got that done. Again, as men, we were like, let's make this happen because that's our job. And then also I feel like he was manifesting by sort of trying to change the narrative when it came to American politics and getting us to understand our freedom of choice. My conversations with Kanye West were a little bit different. I felt that Kanye, I remember being a little bit frustrated when I looked at his finances and I saw that he was getting $20 million every 2 months from Adidas and all these other companies. And I don't want to talk about too much of his business because I'm not trying to do that. But I remember thinking, with the amount of money that they sent you just one time in one of those payments, you could build an entire school system with that. Like, you could literally go and do that. And I don't know if he was quite able to really see that, right? And that's very frustrating for me as a finance PhD, because I'm sitting there thinking, we know how to take $1 and turn it into 50, or make $1 out of 15 cents. Like, I could take 20 million and do $100 million worth of stuff with it. And but you're sitting on the 20 million and you're thinking about some stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. No disrespect to him, but that was a difference, right? Like, so imagine if millions of our boys understood the manifest aspect of manhood, but also were trained, again, by us. They must be educated by us. They're wasting $1 trillion worth of black talent every year with this horrible school system. They're trained to manifest. They're trained to be strategic. They're trained to build relationships with other individuals that they can build with. They're trained to think that their success should not belong to you. Your success should not just be your success. Who cares? Because your success will die with you. But if you really want to have a legacy, if you really want to live forever, then what you think is, okay, as a man, because I'm now the king, I'm the winner, I'm the successful, my goal is to multiply that and create structure so that I can help as many people as possible become as great as I am. And then when I die, I still get to live forever because that energy, that spirit, that manifestation has impacted so many people. This is what I think about every single day, and not that I have it all figured out. I ain't no perfect guy, but this is what I believe because I've seen it work, and I want this for our people.
All right, you brought up Dr. Claude Anderson, right? You've been fortunate enough to have conversations with him both in public and private, right? I want to speak about a quote from his book here, right? Black Labor, White Wealth. That book really opened up my mind to a lot of stuff. And there's another book he recommended in there, Two Nations, Black and White, Separate, Hostile, and Unequal by Andrew Hacker. He did a great job of breaking down how the absence of not just the man, but the man's income is so detrimental to that. That's the part that really got me. So In the book, right, I recommend everyone get Dr. Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth. Also, Two Nations, Black and White, Separate, Hostile, and Unequal by Andrew Hacker. In Black Labor, White Wealth, Dr. Anderson says, the dominant white society felt that by stripping the black slave of his humanity, all his worldly possessions, his personal freedoms, and keeping him hopeless, that blacks would be forever non-competitive and powerless. Needless to say, the dominant society's experiment in social engineering worked.
Yeah, it did. Black Labor, White Wealth was the first book I ever read from Dr. Anderson. It changed my life.
Same here.
Yeah. He needs to be included in all the reparations conversations. That's one of the reasons that I don't believe that they're real serious, because he lives right there in D.C. They could have invited him to Capitol Hill to speak. Even Howard University doesn't have him come speak, because this idea of black people truly being empowered is scary and radical for a lot of people, and but I appreciate Dr. Anderson for being radical. He's one of the people that gave me the courage to be radical when I first met him, and he's like a father to me. I love this man immensely. One of the greatest minds in the history of this country. So what he said there about the black man sort of being stripped of everything and making him uncompetitive is 100% true. I want you to walk down the street and just look at how many of our men have been led to believe that they cannot compete or stand toe to toe with the white man. Just think about it. Look. I mean, it's so many. Or there are also, like, sort of, we've been ghettoized to some extent. The black man in particular, when it comes to economic opportunities. If you're a black man who is a rapper, a comedian, or an athlete, the road is completely clear for you. You can do whatever you want in this society. You're going to get a certain amount of respect for that. But if you show up as a black man who's an engineer, who wants to be a medical doctor, or who wants to go build rocket ships to Mars like Elon Musk, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance, because they're not used to that. Like, if you go to a company like Google that doesn't hire a lot of black people to do engineering, they get their engineers from India. They'll import the engineers from India before they hire the black person down the street. But if you go to, like, say, an office party, when they want to have fun, they'll bring in some rapper, right, to entertain them, right? So to some extent, we're seen as the entertainment for other people, and we've embraced that, right? And as long as you're the clown, you'll never be the king. The king does not see himself as an equal to the clown.
We have to jump back. We spoke about how white people perceive us. We need to talk about how we perceive us and what we give attention to. A lot of this stems from, like, in the sense that the athlete is worshipped, the womanizer is worshipped, the aggressive person with no self-control who has fits of frustration and violence is worshipped. But the academic, the intellectual person is ignored. Coming home party for jail or going away party from jail is packed. Graduation party, no one's giving you. You can give your own. No, seriously, you can give your own graduation party, but who's the community's not going to give you a graduation party. So, like, the community has been so indoctrinated with the ideas from white people that they create this culture where they don't give any attention to things that are progressive. What that does now is a lot of children see that and they dumb down. I'm speaking from experience, seeing this in academics, bro. They dumb down themselves and they tend to move towards where you get attention. And I think that's one of the reasons we don't have, even though we do have engineers, that's the reason we don't have as much, because a lot of people get turned off because they're not getting attention for doing the right thing. That's why you have so much brilliant people in jail, because they're not thugs, bro. It's just they partake in actions, they get caught up. But it's like, where do I get attention from? Where do I get praise from?
Yeah, you said so many things that spark thoughts. First thing, attention is a valuable commodity. It's a multi-trillion-dollar commodity. That's how Mark Zuckerberg is worth over $100 billion, because he controls your attention on Facebook and Instagram. And as you're scrolling and all that, clicking and all that, and beefing back and forth on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, he's making a ton of money. Elon Musk is making billions, right? So attention is a commodity. A lot of attention is driven by things like media. This is why platforms like yours are so important, because it's the lack of ownership of media that has been one of the great weapons of mass destruction against black people. A lot of this was accelerated in the 1990s when Farrakhan was able to bring together 1 million black men for the purposes of something better, Well, then at that point, there was a lot of deregulation of media. So you had Clear Channel going out buying hundreds of radio stations, broadcasting the same dumbed down, self-destructive message. And that was, it really started in the 1990s. And it's just sort of, this is a continuation of that. Now, with that said, in addition to the ownership of black media, I think that they're also, in addition to that, we must also understand, just really as a national security issue in our community, the importance of us educating our own kids. Because in that education, you can inject self-esteem, self-awareness, and knowledge of self, so that the child does not get sort of sucked into every stupid trend, every fad, whatever. In addition to that, you compound that with critical thinking skill, right? So if I got a child who knows who they are, they've been educated on the dangers of things like alcohol, drugs, excessive womanizing, being stupid, thug life, all that. They've been educated on this. Then when they see that happen, they're not going to go follow the trend. They're not going to go do stupid stuff just to get attention. They're going to say, no, my father, I'm speaking to myself now. I sit here and I think, oh no, my dad told me that stuff will get you hooked. Or because my daddy showed me some heroin addicts when I was a kid. That's what he used to do. He'd take me out the street and be like, see that motherfucker over there? I'd be like, yeah. He's like, well, he used to be the star of the football team. You want to be like him now? I'd be like, no. Because he's like laid out, strung out on drugs, right? So that has to be part of the educational process. We have to think about education as like preparation for war, right? Or at least preparation for survival. Because when you get into this world, there's so many things, spiritually and psychologically and otherwise, that are designed to control you, that if you're not ready, you're going to get obliterated by this society. So I think that, so to your point, when you see the nonsense getting all the attention, that is true. But the people that are really going to build the future, the people that are going to guide us out of this thing, are not going to be the sheep that follow the crowd. It's going to be those people who have that knowledge of self as well as skill, who are going to say, you know what, it's not as flashy to be an engineer, or it's not as cool to start my little small black-owned business, but I'm going to pour into this thing and I'm going to keep doing it while it's not cool. I'm going to feed it just like a little newborn ugly baby. And as I keep feeding this baby grows into something big. Like, I'll give you one example that you can sink your teeth into. The NFL, when the NFL first got started, nobody wanted those franchises. The Chicago Bears were like $100. They get the Green Bay Packers, $50. The Detroit Lions, $150, stuff like that. Well, now look at the NFL now, right? Remember, those people that created the NFL had to have some things that most people did not have. They had to have a vision, a long-term vision. They also had to have a willingness to take the risk, because the league could have died. It could have been a waste of time, right? I'm sure they had job opportunities where they could have worked at other places, but they didn't. They poured into their stupid, ugly, little, worthless business, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar entity. I need those people that have that long-term vision. Those are the people I ride with. People who can't see past the next 5 or 10 years, I feel bad for them. They've been infected with that virus of stupidity that you talked about.
There's another thing we have to touch on, right? Because we're both speaking from privileged positions, not from economics, but from having strong fathers.
Right.
Now, a lot of the stuff we want is not going to take place unless we have strong fathers. Yeah. So there has to be another form of education in regards to family planning that I don't even know how it looks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how it looks, but it's something we have to implement, because everybody's on the spiritual health, everybody on the physical health. Now we on the financial health. And I think another thing we need to have conferences on is family planning in regards to, you may not want, I'm telling you, it's not to say you can't really tell a person not to have sex. I don't think that's realistic for this generation, even though this generation that's having the least amount of sex than previous generations. It's a different conversation. But they have to understand the economic impacts of having children early and also having children in separate households.
Yeah, all that. And again, when we start educating our own, and there are already people doing that. There's homeschool networks everywhere. That needs to be included too. Planned Parenthood shouldn't just be the place to get an abortion. The concept of Planned Parenthood means...
We shouldn't even get to that point. We shouldn't even get to the abortion point.
Right. Planned Parenthood should mean, I'm going to help you plan how you're going to become a parent, and the amount of power that you have as a parent to either build or destroy. You either build something great with that child or destroy them completely by making bad, irresponsible choices. You can teach things like delayed gratification versus instant gratification. You can teach just from a common sense standpoint. Older women talking to younger women can help younger women understand the right type of man that you want to allow into your bedroom. I speak all the time on my channel about just the biochemistry of sex and how when you lay down with somebody and you're having orgasms with this person, it's going to make you fall in love with the wrong. It can make you fall in love with the wrong person. The same way taking a hit of crack can make you fall in love with crack. Literally, as smart as I am right now, theoretically, whatever I am. If you brought crack in and I was arrogant enough to think I can take a hit of that crack and not become an addict, that's not true, right? So I'm smart enough to know that I'm not able to outsmart nature, right? So sex and love is one of the greatest forces in the history of this earth, and you cannot outsmart Mother Nature. So when I talk to my girls, it starts with basic stuff. Like, okay, if you don't think a man is gonna be a good father to your kids, don't even give him your number. You don't dabble with the devil. Don't play. We're just friends or we just slept together. Okay. Well, you do understand that when that man gives you that first orgasm, that your brain chemistry releases oxytocin, which will make you wake up thinking that he's a wonderful guy, even though he's not. And next thing you know, you'll be pair bonded with somebody who will ultimately destroy your life, give you unwanted kids, STDs, emotional problems, financial problems, and the whole gamut because you thought you could outsmart Mother Nature. You thought you could play with fire, just like me thinking I can go to the crack house and not risk becoming an addict.
I think people think they can handle sex more than they can. And they don't understand the impact sex has on their irrational decision making, bad decision making.
Yeah, no, because it's not part of the educational process. So I think, again, the parent should be the first teacher of that child. I encourage I tell everybody, my channel, I say, look, I'm not here to teach no students. I'm here to teach teachers. Because the things I share with you will only have value if you share that, if you trust it enough to share that with people you love, share that with your kids. That white lady from the suburbs should not be the primary educational force in your child's life. You should be the primary force. You have that veto power because your child's experience and circumstances and choices and things they have to navigate is going to be so different from everybody else's because they're black. So you have to be able to teach them to play chess instead of checkers, or they'll get caught in all the same traps. Like the people don't notice the lowest median net worth in America is that of a single black mother with children. Why? Well, because you're playing a team sport as an individual. You're trying to do a 2-person job all by yourself. These men that have these kids with you are supposed to be helping you financially, but they're not in many cases. Right there with her is the black male with a bunch of babies mamas. Have you ever dealt? I did 18 years in child support court. I said I'll never do this again. It is taxation without representation. You pay all this money, you don't have no say over where the money goes, and it's hard. It's really hard. So what I would say to guys is, if you are a man and you want to be successful, or really a woman too, it's hard to get there without having some degree of sexual discipline. But that ties back to self-esteem. So I keep going back to the first thing you mentioned because you hit the nail on the head. Because if I really value myself,
you're gonna be out there with everybody.
Then I'm not gonna I'm not gonna give up everything I got as a man over a big butt and a smile. You can't show up and just waggle a vagina in my face and have me ready to risk it all. The same thing as a woman. If you value yourself, you're not gonna let some crappy, horrific man who's gonna be a terrible father into your bedroom. You're gonna take your time and pick a man that's worthy of you. Right. So, but again, that self-esteem void starts in childhood because of the missing father that you mentioned. Because the father gives the son that guidance and intelligence, and he gives the daughter the self-esteem, that unconditional love that so many of our girls are missing. So the missing father is one of the worst problems in our community, and we do have to fix that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I don't know. I always think about because it's so far gone. How do we start? Because you have so many kids that don't have the guidance, and they're gonna have kids. So it's like they keep reproducing. Not saying everybody's gonna turn out, but majority, it is what it is, right? But how do you stop it, and how do you balance it out realistically? That's the wild part, because there's so many missing components there's so many missing positions that need to be filled. But how do you fill them?
I don't think that you can solve every problem. I don't think, I know I can't. I don't think that I don't see a world in the near future where every single black person is in lockstep and moving in the same direction. I just don't. What I see is that there are people that will get it and those who don't. Also, even those who don't get it, it's okay. In my view, it's okay if you don't get everything I'm saying. But if you're willing to trust me and hear some of the things that I'll share with you, then I don't have a problem, being your father temporarily whenever you want, in terms of being that guy that can give you some information, some game that will help you succeed. Or even, and I'm not the only one. There's other, like that I like that podcast, $1 Million Worth of Game, because I like the fact that I believe it's not Gilly, it's the other guy, Wallow.
Oh, yeah.
I like the fact that Wallow talks honestly about his prison experience.
Very real.
And he
Yeah, I
educates
caught a couple
guys like, this is not what you want to do, right? That's fatherhood. That's him being the masculine leader that I like for him to be. My good friend Willie D, people like that. So you don't always have to get. I mean, I'd rather your father be in your house and you see him every morning at breakfast and all that. But if you don't have that,
You need father. My brother said you don't necessarily need a father. You need fathering.
yeah, there we go. It's just guidance. It's preparation. It's training, right? So effectively, I think the love is important too, right? In fact, the love kind of drives everything. If you don't think I care about you, then you're not going to listen to me. But I think that there are men who are helping in that regard. I think there should be more men. I think that every man on earth, any man listening to our conversation now, should understand that word, how that word man is short for manifest in my world, where you go manifest that. You see those young people that need guidance, that maybe that kid, because his father is doing whatever, he doesn't have the support he needs. It's okay to step into that role. And also, I really want to challenge those men who are running around telling other men that you're a sucker if you become a stepdaddy. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not saying that they have to become stepdaddies. You don't have to do that. Maybe that's not your job. But there are some men who, like my father, understand masculinity, meaning to take responsibility for something, who care about their community, who say, you know what, I met a beautiful woman. She's a great person. Some bad things happened, apparently, for whatever reason. And this is the space I want to occupy. I'm not just going to show up just to get in her bed and then leave. I'm actually going to take on all of this, and this is my territory. I'm going to make sure these people are good. I think that's a beautiful thing, and that's something that's happened since slavery. When the fathers would get sold on the plantation, other strong men would step in the father's place. We cannot lose that, and unfortunately, and it causes some conflict. I know that there are some people that are unhappy with me for saying this, but I've had to say to these men directly, why are you telling men that if they become a stepfather, they're stupid or whatever? Like, that's just not healthy. Like, just shut up. Like, just talk about your own life and do what you're going to do. But don't go and spread this toxic message that somehow single mothers are all bad people because of the situation they're in, or because they're taking responsibility for children that many of us are not taking responsibility for. That's bullshit.
Why do you believe 86% of black businesses fail?
Well, in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, I talk extensively about economic culture and why black business failure rates tend to be higher than, say, white business failure rates. Now, first off, about half of all businesses fail already, just across the board, right? So entrepreneurship is already difficult, but then it becomes more difficult if you don't have an environment that supports the growth of entrepreneurship. And the way to explain it is in finance, most of our equations where we literally mathematically write out how wealth grows, like how much money you'll have after a certain amount of time, those equations are actually from biology. So the same way you model the way money grows is the way you might model the way a plant grows or a baby grows or any living thing. So think about this. Imagine if you're trying to grow a garden, right? And the seeds that you plant are put into soil that is incredibly toxic. You're trying to grow a garden in the desert. The weather conditions are terrible. Maybe too much heat, too much cold, too much rain, whatever, right? Well, you're not going to get much out of that. You're not going to grow a beautiful garden. You're going to have a bunch of dead stuff. And so to some extent, if people want to visually see what it's like growing a business in the black community, visualize the desert. Visualize trying to grow a garden in the desert. It's extremely hard. You have to be extremely skilled to grow anything in the desert. And really only certain things will grow, maybe cactuses and stuff like that, but you're not going to grow certain plants or whatever. Certain animals can't survive in the desert. So our businesses go through the same thing. There's a uniquely painful experience that black business owners go through because unlike their white counterparts, they just don't get the support they deserve. It starts with things like the bank.
Clarify support. Go, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It starts with the bank. And again, this is coming from black people and white people, racism and otherwise. So the bank won't loan money to black businesses the way they loan money to white businesses. Why? Well, part of it's because we don't have the wealth base that a lot of white families have, where they can put up the collateral or whatever, or the relationships, all these things, right? So they're severely undercapitalized. People don't understand. More businesses die from a lack of capital than die from a lack of profitability. You have a lot of very profitable businesses, or businesses that would have become profitable, but they died because the flow of money stopped. Money's called liquidity. Imagine what happens to your body when you don't get enough water. You die, right? But what else also happens? Well, if you have what I call toxic economic soil, that might look like an entrepreneur and their family. Think about this, right? If I go to LinkedIn and I say, I got the promotion, I'm going to get like 1,000 likes, right? Everybody gets that. Everybody understands jobs. But if I say, I started my business, it's going to be crickets. You're not going to get the same emotional support that you would get if you go get that job. That emotional support really matters, because that's that type of social proof, or that's that engine that keeps you going. Like you said, with attention and things like that, when people are encouraging you, that gives you confidence. That makes you willing to take risks. That makes you want to keep it moving even in the bad times. But if everybody's telling you that I don't support you and this is a bad idea, then if something goes wrong, you're gonna say, yeah, it was a bad idea. I gotta go, right? And then you throw in things like trauma and just mental health issues, right? A lot of us, we start businesses. We got relatives who don't want to see us succeed, right? Maybe they're jealous, or they want to hit the like button on a Facebook post. If you post your product, they show as hell ain't gonna buy nothing, right? And you contrast that to a healthy environment. A healthy environment is where I say, hey man, you starting that business? Way to go, bro. Well, let me see if I can help you. Let me see if I can buy something from you. I know some customers that can help you with the business. Oh, I know where you can get some capital. Oh yeah, you need somebody to come in the shop and sure, I'll do it for free. Or you can pay me later. You see what I mean? Like, those are two different kinds of environments. So what I tell families that really want to start businesses is to understand that the biggest myth is that most capital is money. Capital is not money. Capital, money's part of it. But money's like the smallest part. The other parts of capital are just things like support and connections and helping you get customers and giving you expertise and information, right? So you have to, in order to grow a business, you have to think about the type of soil that you're planting the seed in. The right soil, you can grow almost anything. The wrong soil, things will die very, very quickly.
Man, that's a great breakdown, right? And there are a couple of parts I want to touch on. One is, why do you feel culturally, not all, but a large portion of our culture is so negative towards progress? I'm not even saying business fight. I'm talking about progress. Whenever you bring up something progressive, they're very negative, and it's almost like they attack you for some reason. What's that about in your experience?
My buddy D1, who's a great rapper and a smart guy, he was talking a lot about something called cognitive dissonance. Now, he was talking about it in terms of how we will support music that literally is like about the most self-destructive shit you could ever create, right? Like, you know, and then you be calling yourself a Christian 1 minute, but you literally rap into a song with lyrics like die, N-word, die, you know, stuff like that. I would also reference cognitive dissonance in the sense that if I view the world in a certain way and you say something to me that's completely different from my worldview, my first reaction after I experience confusion might just be anger. I might just be pissed at you. Like, you come to me, you know, like, I love my wife and I believe my wife loves me. But if you say, you know, Boyce, your wife don't love you. She really wants this guy over here. And she, while you on your trip, she's in the bed with this other dude. I'm gonna be like, man, F you, get out of my face. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna believe you. I might be irritated with you, whatever. I might think you're spreading rumors and lies, right? So cognitive dissonance can occur in the case you're referring to, in the sense that as Black people, we really are used to the world kind of operating a certain way. We're used to the Black man losing. We're used to having problems that we whine about that have no solutions.
Say that again. Say those two parts again, please.
We're used to the Black man losing. We have a losing culture. Like, you look at a football team, you know, when Deion Sanders came to Colorado, they had a losing culture. They were used to going 1-11, right? So he comes in and he's like, no, we winners. I've been a winner since I was a little kid. This is your new quarterback. This is how we're going to do things. You don't think anybody was mad about that? I'm sure he's got a trail of people that were pissed at him because he was literally doing like Jesus and kicking over the tables, like he was coming in saying this ain't the way it's going to get done. You cannot have progress without having some degree of chaos, controversy, conflict. It's going to happen, right? So anybody that's progressive needs to prepare for the reality that a lot of people are not going to appreciate what you're bringing to the table. They're not. It's just uncomfortable for you to force me to change my worldview. And so what I might have to just do is if I want to, if things are going to be different, like Coach Prime, what he had to really do is just say, well, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to go out here and start winning games, and then you'll eventually accept my view of the world. Most really good progressive ideas were met with conflict, but eventually if the person presenting those ideas was able to truly manifest it, then eventually people believe it. Like, I'll give you one example. Who's it? Let's think about Kanye. I was talking about Kanye earlier. I don't want to think I'm dissing him or anything. But remember, Kanye came into hip hop saying, one day I'm going to take over the game. And people didn't like that. They thought that was crazy. Dame Dash and another friend of mine, these guys were annoyed with Kanye, right? But what did he do? He took over the game. Now they accept him as this great artist that he is. So that's what's required. If you are bringing progressive ideas, the best approach, in my view, is to really not even advertise it. Because remember, we got a lot of yappers out here that just talk about what they're going to do. Just do it. And then if you do it and you succeed at it and you make it work, then other people will eventually get in line. The world will always move out of the way of a person who knows where the hell they're going and they're committed to it.
There's one more thing I want to touch on is black business, which I've noticed, even experienced, is that it almost seems you're discriminated by other races and black people. So you're like in a weird spot in regards to your customer base.
Yeah.
Because it's just like off the back, they have so many preconceived notions about your establishment. And what happens is that if anything goes wrong, right, the patience is just so non-existent compared to other organizations. So it's like, how does one navigate that?
I'll start. I wrote a book years ago called What If George Bush Were a Black Man? And the premise of the book is that for black men and black women, especially black men, you have a margin of error that's much thinner than everybody else, right? So if you look at George Bush, he gets in trouble, gets arrested several times. He still becomes president. A black man that gets arrested 2 or 3 times, he ain't never gonna be president. He might get 30 years in prison, right? Under the Biden crack laws, stuff like that. Same thing is true in business. A white company makes a mistake, and it's a controversy for a while, but eventually they get back on their feet. Wells Fargo's making billions of dollars, even though they've committed some of the most heinous financial crimes imaginable. A black business does what Wells Fargo does, they're gone. They're not going to exist anymore. And I could give more examples. When I was a professor at Syracuse, if the bearded white guy down the hall makes a mistake, it's like, oh, the professor made a mistake. If the black man makes a mistake, it's like, oh, well, he's not qualified to teach, right? That's life, right? And what you said about discrimination, that is 100% true. Black businesses have a double whammy. They get discriminated against by white folks, and they also get discriminated against by a lot of black folks.
But there's another thing I want to touch on why it's so detrimental is that it makes your progression hard because while you're growing, you're going to make mistakes. And you're almost put in a position where you can't make mistakes. How can you learn and be perfect at the same time? Yeah. And that seems like that's what they're looking for black businesses.
Yeah. And that's another element of that toxic economic soil. People don't understand that. To grow an economy, you need something that is lacking in a space of traumatized people, which is this thing called trust. And without trust, economic systems break down. For example, when there's a recession, what happens? Well, let's think about the bank failures. When the banks started failing, people, they weren't rushing to put their money in the banks. They were pulling their money out, right? Why? Well, because they didn't trust that the bank was going to be able to keep their money. When the economy starts to fail, companies don't make big investments. They hold on to their money. Why? Well, because they don't trust that if they make the investment, the consumer is going to come through for them and help them get their money back. Consumers don't spend when the economy goes down. Why? Well, because the trust is gone. I can't go buy this new refrigerator if I don't trust that I'm going to have a job 6 months from now. You understand? So when you kill trust, you kill economics. So look at our community. the trust, the lack of trust is incredibly high, and you have entire platforms that are built on just pointing to black businesses' mistakes and saying scammer, 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 instead of saying, brother, I think you made a mistake. Let me help you correct that, right? And this is just cultural, right? So effectively, what I find is that you have some people that understand this issue, that can say, you know what, this black business owner made a mistake. I may not even buy from him anymore, but I'm going to go, and because I care about the community, I'm going to help this young brother understand how he can do business better, or why I won't be his customer anymore. But on the other side, you have people that say, you shouldn't be in business anymore, because inherently, fundamentally, they kind of believe black people shouldn't be doing business at all. Because white people can make mistakes that are 10 times greater. I'm talking about trillion, billion, multi-billion dollar mistakes. And we won't say a word about that, right? We'll still go to that same company, right? Think about how many people McDonald's has killed, and how many automobile manufacturers have had defects that have killed people, right? Tesla is, some of their driverless cars are having crazy accidents, right? But we're not saying, okay, Tesla should not be in business, right? So what I would say is that those who want to create a healthier environment should understand that as black businesses grow, and you have a lot of first generation business owners who are still trying to figure it out, some of them are young, etc., you have to find some way to give grace without feeling like, though, that you still have to give them your money. I may not give you any more money, but at the very least, if I'm like, okay, you know what, I want to try to help, let me at least leave a review and talk to the brother, or tell him something that will help him do things better. Because here's another thing people should understand. I'll give you an example. UPS is an amazing company that still makes mistakes, but they're worth probably about $250 billion now. UPS was started by two teenagers delivering packages on their bikes. You don't think they made mistakes? Like, seriously, you don't think they probably fucked up 10 million times? But nobody ever came along and said, see, y'all are scammers, you shouldn't have been doing this anyway, I want y'all out of business. That didn't happen, because if it had, there would be no UPS.
Fire, man, it come down to grudgefulness at the end of the day. And like, some of these environments are so toxic. Like, I grew up in East Orange, and it's so hard to get out of these environments. Mm-hmm. It's very hard. I'm telling you, like, as a progressive person, trying to do something, it's so hard, because the environment itself, it's almost like they don't want you to come out of there.
Well, man, I think going back to the point about how economics and almost everything is kind of like almost what I call gang affiliated, and meaning like you have to find your group, right? And part of the reason we created things like the All Black National Conventions, I didn't just create it for the community. I created it also for myself. I said, I need to find my people, because if I get enough of my people together, then we can take on the world. We can defend each other. We can give each other that support that we need, right? It doesn't have to be a big group. It might be, a group of 5 or 10 people, but you stay in that space. You have to be conscious of the energy that you're around. You have to be thoughtful about what spaces you can navigate. I don't believe in the philosophy of trying to save everybody. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that, and I don't have the patience to do that. If you are on some other shit and you're determined to stay where you are, you're not even hearing what I'm saying, there's no reason for us to have a conversation. I don't mess with you, you don't mess with me. Right, and that's it. I'm not out here trying to talk somebody into believing what I believe. It's very easy for me to block somebody from my channel just to say no, because I don't need you here talking crazy while I'm talking to people that are focused, while we're trying to build something over here. And that makes sense, right? If the grown-ups are building over here and the children are coming around and disrupting what the grown-ups are doing, you're gonna send them to the children's room. You're gonna put them out. You stay over there. We're doing something important here. You got to be able to focus. And it starts with basic things. If you are a man or you are a woman and you're trying to raise your kids right and make good decisions and prepare them for this world, then you have to do a little bit of isolation. It sucks, but you do, right?
Thanks, bro.
My parents had to do that with me. My parents, one of their biggest philosophies was we don't give a shit what people are doing down the street. Like, that was literally how they operated. And that was so important, and because when I thought about my childhood, I had about 5 guys I hung out with, some of them in my own family. Every single one of those guys ended up on drugs or in jail, except for me. Like, every one of them. And I couldn't understand why. And I figured out part of it was because everything was different. My mother, the way she responded, like if I got in trouble with one of those guys, I would get punished in a way that was different from the way they might get punished. You know what I mean? Or I was hearing different things than what they were hearing at home. And it's no disrespect to them, but you are in a especially as a black man in America, we're kind of in this crazy toxic space where not only does the toxicity exist, but it gets accelerated because a white man sitting there rubbing his hands like Birdman, pouring money to market the toxicity. So the intelligent men, the ones who are doing the right things, raising families, making smart moves, they're not being promoted in media saying, here's an example. They're seen as dangerous. Right? That's why I got banned from Instagram. Right? I had 430,000 fans on Instagram. Suddenly I got banned. You can't even say the name Boyce Watkins on Facebook without your post being erased. I don't even talk about it much, but one of my students, he said, I kept typing your name and it kept disappearing. And I said, what is dangerous about me? What am I doing? Am I killing people? Am I calling women out their name? What am I doing that is so dangerous? Am I running around hurting people? No, I'm empowering the community or empowering the people that want to listen. So men like that are seen as dangerous, but to some extent, I understand it. If I am of the mindset that America has been for the last 400 years, if I am in a country that has built trillions of dollars on the control and the management of black people, then yeah, people like me will be seen as very dangerous. So as much as I'm angry about it, I'm not so angry about it, because I had other platforms. We got millions of people on different platforms. I was prepared for this. I'm not angry about it. I understand it. I would see me as dangerous too. Because the black man who's yapping and screaming or fitting in with whatever the protocol is, I think that's seen as an asset. But that black man who's actually solving problems and changing conditions, which I know that we've done, I got a track record now at this point. We've been doing this. That's gonna be a problem. And here's the thing. We're just beginning. This is the beginning. This is a 50-year plan. Right? 60-year plan. This is not something I thought would happen quickly, but let me give you an example. I'm not bragging here, but I actually tell you too. When Charlamagne the guy was going to interview Joe Biden, they didn't understand the dangerous connection was that me and Charlamagne had become friends. So Charlamagne texted me and asked me what questions to ask Joe Biden. I texted him the questions. He asked some of those questions. And what happened? Joe Biden lost his mind. That's when he got up and said, well, you don't vote for me, you ain't black, right? They ended the interview because they're not used to dealing with intelligent black people. Right? We're smarter than them, man. We're stronger. We're more capable, right? And all we got to do is get our missiles in place, get our assets in place, and we're gonna win. We're gonna win. So we may not be winning right now, but I can see 30 years, 40 years in the future, and what I see is amazing.
There's a rapper called Ransom, right? He has a song called Freedom. He says, "You're not really free if you spend 10,000 at Saint Laurent. Now your man sells clothes, but you want some free shit." Right? And I just think that captures in regards to the psychology of our community in the sense that, bro, I'm in business and I'm selling a product. I can't sell it to you at 90% off. I can't sell it to you for 50% off, or hence I wouldn't be in business. You don't negotiate with the people at the mall, maybe at an independent store. So why are you negotiating with me? It's just the concept of when it comes to your thing, it's supposed to be given at a cheaper rate.
Yeah, I think people try to get away with whatever they think they can get away with, right? If I know you and I'm negotiating with you, or I'm buying from you, maybe because we're friends, I feel like, okay, we're on the same level, you should hook me up, right? But if I'm dealing with a corporation or people that I know don't care about me, then I know I have a choice. I either pay the price or I walk away, right? In fact, this is another reason why a long time ago I stopped negotiating my own speaking engagements, because when people would talk to me, they'd be like, "Hey man, we friends. You should do it for free." And it's like, yeah, but I got bills to pay. So I have another person that you don't know that's y'all ain't buddy. Like my manager don't play. My manager's like, this is the price, and this is what it's gonna be. You got to respect that, right? And so I would say that a lot of that differential in terms of how we deal with each other does sort of connect to that idea that maybe familiarity changes behavior. Familiarity can also breed contempt, right? Especially if I see whether we're equals and I'm like, wait a minute, you sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars and I'm not. Like I'm going to get pissed about that, especially if I think that you're getting some of that money from me, right? So to some extent, part of the solution to that might mean understanding that if you are selling a product, everybody isn't going to be your customer. You can choose to stay firm on your prices. But when you also blend money with things like friendships and relationships, I haven't seen a lot of situations where it's easy to do a lot of business with friends and not lose some friends in the process. Now I have some people that can't understand that it's just business, and maybe it shouldn't be just business, but it has to be because you got bills to pay. Now the ideal situation, however, is for me to understand, as you and I are playing the economic game, I understand this important thing about me truly being your friend. If I care about you, think about this. We've been doing this forever. If I care about you and you come to my house and we eating dinner, what am I going to do? I'm going to make you a plate, right? Why? Well, because that's how I show love and appreciation, respect. We've been cooking for each other and having Sunday dinner since forever. Well, also, if I care about you, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to support your business because I know you got to eat economically too. So maybe we come to a compromise that makes a little more sense. Maybe I say, hey, look, because we know this ain't just business, don't treat me like you don't know me, man. Can I get like 10% off or something? I think that's fair, right? And what would be unfair for you as a business owner is for you to say, well, my white customers pay 100%. I had this conversation with a black lawyer one time because I sent him some students from the black business school. And he said, my white customers, they pay full price. I said, yeah, but your prices are high and white people have more money. And I said, look, they want to give you full price. They can't because white people have more wealth than black people do. So is there something, can you work something out? Right? And so can you compromise, right? So the compromise is maybe you give me a discount because I do believe in giving black people a discount. But then the compromise on your end is, you know what, I'll go ahead and pay for this thing, even though I could have haggled and begged you to give it to me for free, right? So it's just like dating or something, like any relationship requires people meeting in the middle, and that relationship between the black business owner and the black consumer requires that both of them understand the importance of respecting each other, right? If you are a black man running a business, I got to respect you as much as I respect the white man. If I work for you, you ever see this where somebody will work for a black person and they'll come to meetings late, will do stuff like half-ass or whatever.
No respect, yeah.
Right, won't show up, right? Because the respect isn't there. And what I tell the people that work for me is I say, I need you to respect me the same as you would respect me if I was running General Motors. Because you know that if you did that stuff right there, you'd be fired from that job. So what makes you think you can do this in my business, right? But at the same time, the business owner must also respect the customer or the black employee, the same way they would respect anybody else, right? So if I am a business owner, I'm not going to give inferior service because you're black. I'm gonna show up. In fact, I'm gonna do better service to you because you're black. Or if you work with me, I'm gonna do more for you. I'm gonna care about you a little bit more. It's not gonna be just business. Like I have a lot of people that work for me, and it's not just business. It's like no, I'm not out here just trying to make as much money as I can make and to be a pure capitalist. No, I care about your family. I want to see you do well. Sometimes I will keep you on, even though someone else tells me I should fire you. And these are violations of the rule of economics to some extent, but they're violations that I can actually commit to without going bankrupt, right? So because I know I'm going to be okay financially, so I'm going to give some margin for you because of who you are. But at the same time, though, we can't take any of that too far because one of us will be harmed and destroyed, right? So if I'm a greedy business owner, I can deplete you financially if I'm completely predatory in my behavior or overly aggressive. And also, if I'm a black customer, I can destroy you as a business owner if I don't understand that I have to chip into the process as well. So it just requires meeting in the middle. Right. And that I think should apply to all economic relationships with black people. Like when I go to restaurants, I make no illusion of the fact that I tip black people more than I tip everyone else. Not that I hate white people. I don't hate white people. Don't hate Asians. Don't hate nobody. But you know what? When you're black, I do relate to you. And I want to have some favoritism that supports you. So if you're a college kid and you're telling me about all your hopes and dreams for the future, or you're a single mom and you got the kids or whatever, yeah, I'm gonna tip you like I'm gonna make it rain because I want to see you do better. And I think that we got to practice spreading economic love to each other in the same way we've spread other types of love.
Please clarify this Jay Morrison situation. There's a lot of stuff circulating, and I want to hear from the horse's mouth, bro. First of all, what is your relationship to Jay Morrison?
Jay is a guy I met in 2016, 2017. He called me because he was building. I met him the same time I met Julian Gordon, and I know those guys both very, very well. And that was one of the reasons why it broke my heart to see those two kind of conflicting like that. But he came to me and told me about the Tulsa Fund, and I asked a lot of questions about the fund and everything else, and he answered the questions really well. I was really impressed with his intelligence. And since that time, we haven't been able to do a lot of business together. But when he built the Black House, I really love the Black House. I put an office in the Black House just because we didn't even use it, me and my wife, but we put it there just to support that Black business. And also, I invested in the fund. So I saw that where Nipsey Hussle had made a comment on Instagram, how he was excited about the fund. He said, "Man, this is epic, bro. I'm gonna invest 10 grand." So I said, you know what? I'll put in 10,000 too. I'll put it right below Nipsey's comment. R.I.P. to Nipsey. So Jay and I have been, we're friends, and I like him as a person.
All right. So did you invest any more than 10,000 or was it just 10,000?
It was just 10,000.
10,000.
And what was weird was some people somehow came to a conclusion that I made money from the fund. I did not make any money from the fund. I have not been paid to endorse the fund. I've not got a nickel from the fund. I was an investor. I mean, and if the fund doesn't make money, then I will lose money as well. I think one thing, though, that I believe is that sometimes with business, it's a long game. So, it's hard to really tell where a business is going in the first 3 to 5 years. So there are some people who think that the fund is dead and is garbage, it should be killed. There are some people, like Jay, I talked to Jay and Julian, I talked to a lot of these people. Jay believes that if he gets funding and a little more time, he can make things work. And it's not my decision to make because I don't know his business. I don't run his business. I know as much about his business as I know about yours. But I heard both perspectives, and I can appreciate both perspectives.
All right. So there are accusations circulating in regards to depleted funds in the fund, right? Have you spoken to him about where the funds are?
Yeah. I mean, I saw the thing that concerned me about the fund when I finally saw the financials, because I don't keep, I support a lot of Black businesses. There's hundreds of that where I've been like, yeah, support this brother, support this sister. It was like that. I wasn't a partner in the fund, so I didn't really keep up with the details. But when I did look at it finally, because somebody sent it to me and they're like, look at this. I was like, okay. I saw that there were about 2.7 million in expenses that didn't make sense to me per se. I asked Jay about it. One thing that he said was he talked about a lot of the legal fees he had to incur when the fund first got started, because instantly people were saying it was fraudulent from the moment that it was created. I thought that was unfair because I don't really think that some people didn't give the brother a chance. Some people were just like, it's fraudulent from the beginning. These are people that didn't invest, didn't support. They hate everything. They called everybody a scammer. I don't think those opinions matter as much. However, there was also a management fee for about $600,000 in there that also concerned me. And I was sort of like, look, man, if you're taking fees like this, there has to be some performance. There's only so much I would say. I'm going to be fair and honest no matter what. And he says that he needs more time and more money. But one of the areas where I kind of got off the bus, because both Jay and Julian reached out to me right when everything popped off. And I just said, well, okay, come on my platform and y'all debate it out. Just let people hear each of your perspectives because I think they both need to be heard. They didn't want to do that. So at that point, I said, well, you know what? Y'all do what y'all going to do. It makes me sad because I feel like there are better ways to kind of handle a dispute, right? I think it should be handled in court or maybe handled in private or whatever. But if it's public, then whatever. It's not my business. That's the key idea.
What was the purpose of the fund? That's what I think, because this is the thing. I just want to hear from you, bro. Like, There's so many different videos with people talking. What is your understanding of the purpose of the fund?
My understanding of the purpose of the fund is that it was to buy real estate and generate income from the real estate and generate capital gains, things like that. I know that Jay, when I would ask him, like, what's going on? What do you guys have going on? They have a lot of plans. They have a lot of things that they're investing in. And also, I really like the Black House. I love the Black House. I think a lot of people should visit the Black House if they haven't done that. Now,
before we move on real quick, what is the purpose of the Black House? Is that supposed to be like commercial building or he rents it out?
It's like an all-purpose place that's just beautiful, man. I mean, they have so much stuff up that's like showing respect to Black people from the past, and it's a co-working type space. They shoot podcasts and films there. They have business meetings there. They do.
So they would generate funds from renting out different spaces in there.
Yeah. But the hard question, obviously, is: are you generating enough income to grow the value of the fund? And I think that's a tough one that I think Jay is going to figure out. What I have said is, sort of in his defense, is to say that there have been other companies where the CEO basically says this happens all the time, where there are people who say, you suck, this business is bad, you should shut the doors immediately, right? But then the CEO comes back and says, no, I just need more time and more money. It's always time and money. So effectively, that's what Jay is saying, from what I've gathered, is, if I get more funding and more time, I can turn this into something. I haven't seen anything that contrasts with that, right? Like, I've been in that office and I see the chalkboard full of all these ideas and things he's setting up. And, and so here's the thing, because Amazon, Jeff Bezos went through the same thing. Jeff Bezos was losing billions of dollars with Amazon, and people were like, bro, you need to shut your doors. Like, this is not going to work. But he was like, no, give me more funding, give me more time. I can turn this thing around. And so I'm not saying that one is true over the other, right? Like if they reach out, like when Jay gets his new funding from whoever he gets it from, it won't be from me, right? Because I've been like, I invested 10 grand. I'm not going to keep going. But I'm not a person that's going to go and deplete the confidence in a black business, because here's the thing. Confidence, you can't keep a company going without investor confidence. Somebody has to believe in it. Not everybody, but somebody does. And what I'm gathering, again, I haven't talked to Jay about this in a while, but I'm gathering that there are some people who have enough confidence to say, okay, let's keep going. Let's make this work.
All right, 2 questions, right, Dr. Watkins? I have to ask this on behalf of the people.
Of
right?
course.
In regards to the other investments, has he showed you documentation showing that the money is invested in other properties outside of the black house?
No, because I didn't ask for all that.
But why didn't you ask for that?
Because I like taking chances on black people and supporting them without being up their ass. Like, I just don't do that. I don't.
So if you invested something in me, right?
Yeah.
Where you invested something with me, you gave me 50 grand. You wouldn't check up to say, hey, bro, can I just see any paperwork or anything of what you're doing, or you just take my word?
I would if it was a major investment for me.
Yeah. Because it's 10 grand, it's like whatever.
I'm not gonna say it's like whatever per se, but I'm gonna say that trust is important for me.
Yeah.
And I heard this black man's vision, and I trusted that he would be able to turn it into something. But remember, I invest in hundreds and hundreds of companies, right?
Yeah.
And my rule I made for myself is that I'm not going to scrutinize Jay more than I scrutinize McDonald's and Microsoft and all the other companies I invest in. The big mistake that I think that he has to fix, though, is I think he needs a board. And I did say that. I said, I think you need a board, and that would generate more trust. I don't know where they are in that process.
That's the last question I was going to get into. But before, did you think because you supported the project, you didn't think it was your responsibility to look in it on behalf of the people and let them know? Or is it because of the friendship?
No, because I do not give investing advice on my channel. Yeah. I do not. I specifically repeat this 10 billion times to people. This is not investing advice. If you trust what I say and believe that my investments are good, and I've had some success with that, then I will tell you what I'm doing. But I do not give investing advice. I tell people, do your own due diligence. Do not just sort of assume that. Don't say I did it because Boyce told me to do it. No, I say, no, I'm supporting it. Like because here's the problem. I cannot go through and do an anal probe on every black business that comes through my space. There's hundreds of people that ask for my help. Julian Gordon asked for my help. When Julian Gordon started his business, I supported him as much as I supported Jay, more than I supported Jay Morrison. Not once have I gone over to Julian's business and been like, I need to see the numbers. What's going on? I just don't do that, because I don't think, if you think about, when I thought about the Tulsa Fund, he was already being scrutinized by the SEC. I mean, that's enough, man. That'll kill a business. People don't understand that SEC scrutiny almost killed Tesla. People don't know that. Tesla, Elon Musk said it. He said it. Go look it up. He said that my issues with the SEC was that they told me that if I did not sign this document, they would open an investigation in me. My covenant for my bonds, the debt I have, says that if they open an investigation on me and increase that scrutiny, then I'm going to lose all my funding. All my debt becomes payable immediately. He said at that point, Tesla would have had to declare bankruptcy. Right? So people, I think, I'm not saying anybody should go jump in the Tulsa Fund. I've never told people, like, everybody go do that. No, I've said, this is what I'm doing because I want to give this thing a chance to succeed. It may fail. 86% of all black businesses fail. I invest in a lot of things that don't succeed. But here's the thing. I encourage people to just understand that just something like an SEC investigation will kill your company. right? And so I just kind of said, well, if the SEC's up his ass, he don't need me up there too. Like, let's see what the brother does. And I made a decision not to add more to my investment, but I don't regret trying.
Last question, do you feel that Jay Morrison is qualified to run a fund? In retrospect now, not initially.
I'm going to say that it looks to me like he probably made some mistakes. Is he qualified to run a fund? I will say that I get the impression he knows a lot about real estate. Would I invest in that fund? I probably would not.
So let's jump back again.
Would I tell others not to invest? I wouldn't do that either. Because one of the things that I think is important to understand about business is most business owners, most millionaires and billionaires have had businesses that did not succeed
many times.
Right, and that you go look at some of these billionaires, the Donald Trump types. Donald Trump probably has hundreds of bankruptcies on his record, and I just kind of don't understand why we are so obsessed with a tiny black-owned business when there are so many other businesses right in our community sucking billions of dollars out of our community, and we give them no scrutiny. I'm not saying people shouldn't scrutinize Jay. I think, fine, if that's an issue for you, absolutely. But when you do 85 videos about the same guy because you're trying to make money for your YouTube channel, that comes off as a little bit obsessive, and it doesn't even give you space to correct the mistake, right? And that's the thing I wanted for the Tulsa Fund was I said, let's find the mistake and fix it, right? And that was something, that I didn't understand. I know Julian Gordon. I felt that was his first point of view was to say, let me come and help you. Let me figure out what's going on. And for whatever reason, that did not happen. And I think that's something that they have to deal with and address. But I look at this as those two men, like this idea.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not like too in that space, but I do see it, right? So how did your name get sucked in it so much? They tried to make
it was mainly one person.
They tried to make it like it's your fund or something.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right. And that's how people just create narratives, right? And so effectively, there's a person I fired years ago who makes lots of videos about me, who started the narrative. And then it's like, well, Dr. Boyce and did this, and Jay and Dr. Boyce, right? So then other people kind of pick up on it. And again, I already know that doing what I do, I create enemies sometimes because of the way I speak, and I'm okay with that. So they ran with that narrative. And again, because the narrative is so inconsistent with the trust that I built with certain people, it draws a lot of views. Like, well, Dr. Boyce has been pretending to understand finance all these years, but really he's a scammer. Really he's stupid. Whatever. And you deal with it. It's life. It happens. And they have a right to speak. So it is what it is.
It seems that many black people still believe our power will come from voting, right? Now, this comment I'm about to make is from observation, not data, analytics, anything. But it seems to me that Asians and Jewish people use money instead of voting to secure their power in America.
Yeah. We were lied to. We were told that we live in a democracy, and we don't. We live in a capitalist society, a capitalist democracy. So capitalism is the older brother. Democracy is the little brother. And the older brother beats up the little brother every single day. And so what has happened in this country is that money, the power of money has overwhelmed almost every other value that we have. That's one of the reasons why corporations sell you food that's going to kill you. That's why we've made billions of dollars off things like penitentiaries or committing war atrocities against other countries. Like, this is all capitalism gone wild because capitalism has become the religion of America. So effectively, if you want to be successful and powerful in America, voting doesn't do it, because voting to some extent means you're sort of a pawn of the capitalist. And so Asian communities and Jewish communities understand this, and they have to understand this because they don't have the numbers to rock the vote or change the country by everybody showing up and voting. They understand that if I'm one guy, but I've got 100 times more money than the guy next to me, I'm going to have 100 times more influence over society and over politicians, right? So effectively, if you look at voting and you look at the influence of money over voting, here's how it works. It's very basic. The capitalist says, I want to control the country, but I don't have enough votes because I'm only one guy and, I would only have one vote. So what they do is they use their money, the power of the money, to buy the politician, and they pay they fund the politician's campaign, and they say, okay, we need votes. So how are you going to get votes? Well, the money I give you is pretty much a marketing budget. So the more money I give you, the more you can market your message. And we have experts that understand the psychology of all the sheep and how to sort of get them all excited. So we're going to talk about gay people. We're going to talk about, something that makes people feel empowered. Black Lives Matter. We're going to use all the buzzwords to get people to show up and rock the vote and believe that they're actually changing the country. Once they do that, once I've paid you this money to go out and buy all these sheep to go and vote for you, you're going to report back to me. And you're not going to do what they tell you to do because those are sheep. They don't even know what they want. We tell them what they want. You're going to come to me. Why? Well, because without my money, you can't get elected. You can't get into office. Raphael Warnock had to raise $250 million to run for office. Ain't no black people got that kind of money. Most black people don't anyway. So effectively, the money is the motive. The money is the driver of everything.
I want to talk about another thing, man. We as a community don't acknowledge this long-term care, both for ourselves and our parents, right? It's so important. Long-term care is so important to our financial, mental, and physical health. Do you have any advice for people with parents, right? The parents seem to push back a lot when we bring up this long-term care conversation. What advice would you give to people who are trying to prepare their parents for long-term care?
Well, you have to bring it up. You can't assume that nobody's going to die just because you didn't talk about it. Everybody dies. We die more than everybody else as a community, and that lack of ability to make those long-term plans it just wreaks havoc on a lot of our families because somehow we feel that it's almost bad luck to talk about death, or it's very depressing, very sad. So part of economic maturity, right, which is a very important concept we discussed at the Black Business School, means doing the grown-up work required to make sure that you maintain stability in that family that you have. So what does occur, though, is culturally speaking, sometimes you have parents that just don't want to do what you tell them to do. And that might require, again, this is where relationship management, things like that come into play. Maybe a family intervention is required, the same way you might approach a drug addict who's insistent on using drugs, even though it's affecting the whole family. In our family, for example, we had to do an intervention. Me, my brother, my father is a stubborn old man. And so me, my brother, and my sister had to get together and do a rebellion and say, look, Daddy, you better, we got to deal with this or there's going to be a problem, right? And he submitted to that, right? So effectively, I would say that every family has to think about long-term care. It's a lot of basic stuff, right? So you talk about at death, it's basic stuff, the insurance policy and stuff like that in place, so you're not doing the whole GoFundMe nonsense, which is very embarrassing to you and the family. And again,
repeat that again too. People don't understand the long period between death and the funeral, and GoFundMe's are a direct sign of what?
A direct sign of a lack of planning. It's very embarrassing especially as a man. I had a relative that died not too long ago, and I got a GoFundMe link, and I was like, oh my God, he's in his 50s. Like, come on, man, and a lot of that's because we're not trained. Again, it starts young. We're not trained to think about these things, so we think we're going to live forever, then we die, and then whatever, right? Problems. Now, the weird thing about, again, this is capitalism talking again, the healthcare system is really designed to just pimp you into the ground. In fact, capitalism is so devious that they will create a problem. They will charge you money to create a problem and then charge you money to solve it. So they'll sell you donuts at the front of the grocery store and diabetes medication in the back. So effectively, you have a scenario in this country where you pay more for your health care than any other country on earth, but your quality of care is like 30th or 40th on the list. It's garbage compared to a lot of countries with lower incomes. So effectively, what occurs is that this capitalist system, after you've worked your butt off, you made yourself sick really by eating bad food and working yourself into the ground. So then you need the healthcare system to take care of you. They charge you insane amounts of money, and they just sort of deplete whatever little wealth you've built. They deplete, and they make sure they deplete all that before you're gone. So if you're trying to play the wealth game at a high level, you have to think about your health. You have to think about number one, just preventative measures, right? Just what you eat, exercise, things like that will keep you from having the problems in the first place. But then when you do have those problems, you have to have a plan for that. And so then there's plenty of stuff out there, right? There's low-cost insurance policies you can buy that will protect you in terms of long-term care and make sure that you're good, right? So this should be as important a part of your financial plan as almost anything else. And here's the other thing too. it's just like every other type of investing. Remember, wealth is driven primarily and it's acquired by people who deal with problems before they occur. You must be proactive to be a wealth builder. If you are reactive, then you will lose your wealth, right? And again, in our culture, we're trained to have we're trained to want instant gratification, and we're also trained to react to problems as opposed to be proactive about problems.
I have to bring this up, man, because you're touching on some great points. When you're proactive, people see you as negative and being a pessimist.
Yeah, and I see you as being a visionary. You're a visionary because you can see, you're not just...
Bro, I see this problem coming, and I'm trying to prepare for the problem.
Right.
But it's like you're negative.
Yeah, and it's hard because not everybody is going to appreciate what the visionary is doing. And then when you have a society that, as my brother Umar was referring to, that's filled with perpetual children, children just don't really plan for the future like that. They're thinking about the here and now. They're not really thinking about 5 years from now or whatever, or a different state of the world, imagining the world being different from what it is. They have to see it in order for it to become real. So unfortunately, when you are the person that has that amount of vision and you're proactive, sometimes you're going to just kind of be by yourself, and you kind of have to, push forward. And I remember that even happened in my own family. In the 1990s, I used to have my video camera because I was like, let's capture all these moments because in 20 or 30 years, we're going to really want to see these videos. And nobody else understood. They were like, there he goes with that stupid camera, whatever, right? Well, now those same relatives are begging me to send them copies of those videotapes I took from 1995 and 96, right? And this was what led me to do that is the same mindset I have as an investor. I understand that if you want to benefit or win, you have to prepare before things happen. Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, he said the battles are won before they begin. So that ability to be proactive, it's something that can be taught, but it's also an incredibly important measure of success in almost every area of life that really should be impressed upon your children.
I want to touch back on something you said in regards to work, health, right? It's this grind culture. Even myself, I have to check myself to make sure I don't get sucked in it. And like balancing your aspirations and health.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to the young brothers and sisters?
Well, first off, I like grind culture. I'm still in it to some extent. Like I grind every day. I want to grind until the day I die. I just love what I do. But then again, if I had a job like that I didn't enjoy, I probably wouldn't feel that way, right? So it's important to get into something that you love, and then it won't feel like work at all, and you'll be great at it because you'll be doing it in your sleep. Now, what I also learned, and I learned this from watching a Will Smith video 20 years ago, and he talked about his first divorce. He said, the reason I got a divorce was because I would put all my time into my work, and I would give my family whatever was left. But if you're a grinder, there's not going to be anything left to put into your relationships or your health or anything. So what you have to do is think of the grind as including everything that matters to you, right? So that's health, wealth, relationships, and everything in between. So now what I do, the difference in my grind today is it's more of a holistic grind. When I was 31, my grind was work, didn't make time for relationships, didn't make time for health. It was all about the work. Well, you get 50-something you grinding, you better make time for your health or your health will come in and train wreck everything that you built. You'll lose all your, they say health is wealth. No. Well, health is more important than wealth because if you ignore your health, then you will lose all your wealth trying to get your health back, right? So you got to include everything. So what I do is I have this list of 5 or 6 things on this list that matter to me. Nothing else really matters. I think so that'll include things like working out, spending time with my wife, grinding, being the best I can be at what I do, and a couple of other things, right? Hobbies. I'm learning how to fly airplanes. I put that on there as well, right? And that's it. That's my whole grind, and I pour everything into that grind. And then anything that's not on that list doesn't get a lot of my time and attention, right? And that's a nice balance because it's hard to really do everything that we want to do or everything that we need to do. But if you prioritize and you just say, okay, these are my 5 things that matter to me, then you can find that you can make quite a bit of progress. But you have to have a balance between breadth and depth, right? So if you're too broad, you try to do so much that you get nothing done. But if you're too narrow, then you're missing out. You're working all the time. You're not, your girl don't want to hang out. She's sleeping with somebody else. Your health done fell apart. You're weighing 400 pounds and can't hardly walk no more. You don't want to live like that. That's not a happy life.
You touched on this before. I would like for you to delve a little deeper. The connection between the principles of biology and finances. You touched on it where you mentioned the bad economic soil and using calculations for plants. But I feel there's more there to share with people. The connection between the principles of finance and biology.
Okay. I'm going to start with, what do you think is the leading driver in the ability to build wealth? If you had to just guess right off the top of your head, what would you guess? Just if you had to guess one thing is like the top driver of wealth.
Consistency.
Consistency is up there, but you know what it is? It's time. And this is not just like sort of a feel-good statement. This is mathematically true. It's a finance PhD. We mathematically derive high-level equations to explain how money grows over time. Albert Einstein said that the greatest force in the universe is not gravity, it's compound interest, because he was shocked by how money grows at enormous rates if you give it enough time. Like Warren Buffett talks about an investment he made in 1942 for like $150, and it's now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because of time. Right? So one way that biology and wealth are connected is that if you give things time to grow, they typically can be, in many cases, can become something that you can't even imagine when it's small and little. And people who don't understand that concept, they get distracted because they don't have enough vision to imagine what that thing's going to look like later. They just see what they have right now and they think, oh, this is nothing, right? So imagine a person looking at a newborn baby and you tell them, this baby is going to be like LeBron James one day. He's the next LeBron. LeBron had a side chick and he had another baby nobody knows about. Not that LeBron would do this, but and this baby is going to be, the doctors say this baby is going to be 6'8", 250 pounds. He's going to be a beast. Well, if you don't understand, imagine if you don't understand how babies grow, right? What are you going to do? You're going to look at him and say, wait, what are you talking about? Like, this is a little baby. He can't even talk. He can't walk. His legs are fat and chubby. And then let's say that the person says, okay, all right, okay. Well, I'll believe you, right? And they give it like what they think is a long time. They give it like 3 weeks. And they come back and they look 3 weeks later and they're like, man, you said this baby was going to be the next LeBron. You out of your mind, fool. Like this, he's barely grown. You know what I mean? Well, that's what people do when they look at small businesses. Because they don't understand the impact of time and the power of time on an investment, they'll do things that are not appropriate for investors, which is to like look at their stocks every 3 or 4 weeks and think that if I told you that a stock is a good stock, that somehow you're going to see the results in a month or in 6 months. No, think about like a baby. You're not going to see that what that baby is in the first, you could go 5 years and you're going to be like, man, I waited a whole 5 years and he's in kindergarten. Like he can barely talk, like he can't even dunk a basketball yet. So a person who doesn't understand the impact of time on how children grow isn't going to see the vision. In fact, we get fooled by it all the time. Think about how many times you saw somebody that you hadn't seen in a few years and you're like, man, you grew a lot. Or you have a child and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's 18. It's just yesterday he was 2, right? Well, that's because he was growing a little bit every day. You just couldn't see it, right? It was so tiny you couldn't see it. Wealth grows kind of the same way, right? So you think about a mature person, again, similar to economic maturity, a mature person raising a child, they understand, like it may not look like this baby's growing, but one day he's going to be in the 10th grade and in college and I'm going to prepare for that, right? We're going to start making plans for that because I know what's happening. It just doesn't look like it, right? So to some extent, economics is the same way. This whole quick money, fast money culture is absolute bullshit. It does not build sustainable wealth. Most billion-dollar families, billion-dollar companies have an origin story that goes back 100 years. Donald Trump became president because of what his daddy did in like 1926, right? So the people that really get this, the people that really want to build true economic infrastructure and real power in the Black community, not just the illusion of power, real power, are the people that can form a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-year plan. The Chinese people, they create 200-year plans for their people. China is in the middle of a 100-year plan for world economic domination. And they're only on year 50. Wait till they get to year 80, 90, and 100. They're investing in their children for the future. So effectively, time, just the same way time is how you can't grow a sycamore tree without time. Like, imagine somebody planting a seed for a sycamore tree and just thinking if I pour a lot of water on it, I can make the tree grow in a week. It doesn't work like that. It needs time. But if you give it time, you can create anything. Like if somebody says to me, Dr. Boyce, I'm broke as hell. How do I get rich by Tuesday? I don't know, man. Go rob a bank, right? You know, whatever. But if you say, Dr. Boyce, I want to be worth $10 million and you give me enough time, well, that's easy. I could easily, in 30 seconds, put together an equation that says, do this every day for the next X number of years, and you'll be worth $10 million. Your family will be a $10 million family. I don't care how poor you are, how broke you are, whatever, but you cannot be trapped by the moment. We get incarcerated by where we are instead of understanding how free you are when you can visualize all the places you can be if you give yourself time and your word, consistency, right? All wealth is an accumulation process, which is a consistent set of actions that occur over a long period of time. Like if I'm walking from here to California, I can walk from here to California, but I need time. But what does it take? It takes me consistently walking. I can go 1 inch at a time. I can literally walk like this. And if I'm consistent, you give me enough time, I can get to California.